SoundCartel.
The lockdown yo-yo is disorientating and deeply disconcerting. So how do you lead during a time like this and continue to inspire and support teams to do the same? Not just now, but for an unspecified time towards an unspecified future. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Spare a thought for those businesses in Melbourne which right now are in stage 4 lockdown as a result of tightening restrictions to combat COVID-19. For others around the country, it's a daily reminder that the future's far from predictable and plans can be thrown into disarray at any time. Leading your team through this particularly difficult period can be the most challenging of all. How can bosses support their staff through the rest of the year and perhaps beyond? For guidance, we turn to Martine Harkin, Director and Facilitator at Leading Teams. First, Chris Ashmore asks Martine how business owners can provide support and clarity for their teams in times like this.
I think, Chris, as soon as leaders can work out what they can control, the better. And I think that's been evident right from the start. I spoke with a client just the other day, actually, and he said to me, we spent the first few weeks trying to put all of these plans in place for what may happen, but as it turned out, everything kept changing all the time. So he said that wasn't a great use of our time. So as soon as business leaders can decide what's within their control, the better. I do think it's much easier to provide support and clarity for teams if you've been doing it throughout. And I think how people have been treated throughout this period of time will determine how a business comes out of it.
Well, of course, employees have different personalities and they cope in their own different ways. How can bosses help with each of them from the impact of the virus?
So the stronger your relationships are, people will have an idea as to what each individual needs in terms of support. Added to that, this period of incredible pressure, and whether that's working from home with kids around, whether that's for us too, we've realised that working from home, people's home space can provide a real sanctuary almost, if you like, if their working environment is less than ideal. So having to adjust those two things merging together has been really tricky for some. But I think the stronger your relationships are, then it makes it easier to know what each of your people does under pressure, what makes them tick under pressure, and to know that how they like to be communicated to, what they need in terms of support. I think during this time, Chris, if leaders haven't taken the opportunity to learn about themselves, because it's leaders going through this period of time as well. So there's a great opportunity for self-reflection and figuring out what each of us as leaders need in terms of support, but it's definitely linked to relationships. And I think the other bit there too is to share that responsibility across a leadership team if you have one. So working with team members isn't all the CEO's responsibility, or it's not all the team manager's responsibility. The more people that take that on in terms of responsibility, the better. So therefore, the stronger the relationships are across the board means that there's support going in all types of directions. And I should say at this point too, I had someone say to me in a conversation a couple of weeks ago, they almost feel like they've been supporting their team members so much that the standard of work has slipped. They're not meeting deadlines anymore. So they almost felt like they'd swung the pendulum too far in supporting their people to the point where they weren't delivering. And so what helps us in that space too, as well as providing great support, which is obviously something that we would encourage, when teams have that really clear purpose that I mentioned earlier, and when they also have a framework of agreed behaviour, then that framework certainly gives us an idea or an anchor point, if you like, of how we should behave in any period of time under any type of pressure.
What steps and processes can we implement now? What's some practical things that people can do to help and carry teams into the future after the crisis And will we be in a better position than we're in currently?
However it is that you do it, Chris, I think a really solid review, and that is really thinking about what's happened over the last 8 weeks. And I think there could be a tendency to excuse or let each other or ourselves off the hook a little bit because of the stress and anxiety around this period of time. But there's also a tremendous amount of learning if the review, in terms of what's really happened, that you can take into what the new normal will end up looking like, either how we have learnt to treat our people over the last 8 weeks, or, goodness me, how we've stopped communicating, or any other things that might have slipped in that we have to really pull into line and stamp out pretty quickly. So I think that idea of review is really important, but constant conversation, more than just checking in, but a deeper checking in, and also that review and what are we really learning about ourselves and our team that we need to bring into our business and our culture moving forward when these restrictions are lifted.
Final question, Martine. How optimistic are you about going forward and the new normal?
In terms of personally, I'm super excited, and I think as leaders, we're the purveyors of hope. So in terms of leadership, if we can continue to drive hope and optimism amongst our teams, then again, with what we can control, and we keep building relationships and we keep supporting each other and we keep holding our line in terms of how we behave, then the better shape we'll be. And I guess where that all starts from is each individual having that optimism themselves for the situation, for their leadership, for the team and the shape that they're in. There's a tremendous opportunity of choice around hope and optimism for the future, no doubt. And that is very much a choice.
That was Leading Teams Director and Facilitator Martine Harkin. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel.